Welcome to the LSU Sports Insider. We're off to a great start. Welcome to the LSU Sports Insider, brought to you by the journalists at The Advocate, NOLA.com, and the Times-Picayune. Perryn Keys on the left side of your screen if you're watching here on YouTube, along with Scott Rabalais, who's coming to you from an undisclosed location in Fort Worth, Texas, i.e. his hotel room, looks like, where he is going to get ready to watch the LSU gymnastics team, see if they cannot close it out and claim their first national title in program history. The semifinals get underway at 3:30 p.m. That should say Thursday. And the championships are going to be at 3 p.m. Saturday. We expect that LSU will make it through to the championships. We will get into that. We will also get into, of course, Rab's favorite place, the happiest place on earth. His trip to Augusta, what he saw there, why he believes that Sam Burns, former LSU golfer Sam Burns, can't quite seem to get over the hump there in Augusta, as well as, of course, we will touch on the LSU baseball team as well. But first things first, this is all gymnastics all the time. The time is upon us. As I said, it should be 3:30 p.m. Thursday, not 3:30 p.m. Saturday, for the semifinals. And
you just kind of put it all together, right?
Yeah, I did. I botched it. I will fess up to it.
And Saturday's on ABC. The finals are on ABC.
That's correct. The championships are 3 o'clock on Saturday on ABC on the big network. And so it should be quite a show. And as I said, we expect LSU to make the championships, and we'll get into that, though. Rab, how are you? Road weary, I'm sure.
A little bit. Got a good night's sleep last night, so I'm ready to go today. It's going to be a hot one here in Fort Worth. And then typical Texas weather, it's like 90 degrees today, and tomorrow's going to be like 60, 60 something. So.
Well, you can warm the cockles with some Taco Cabana, if you stop off there somewhere on the side of the freeway. I know everybody else would choose a finer, more authentic taqueria, but I'm a sicko.
Taco Cabana is very good. Very good.
Yes, I agree. A little bit of business, as always, to start off the program here. If you're watching or if you're tuning in and listening, you know that The Advocate's always been the number one destination for all things LSU sports, as evidenced by the fact that Rab is in Fort Worth to cover the LSU gymnastics team as they hunt down a national championship. So please subscribe to The Advocate if you haven't already. It's the easiest thing to do in the world. You can subscribe, whether it's print or digital. You go to theadvocate.com/subscribe. And sign up there. Also, please, while you're perusing theadvocate.com, sign up for our LSU newsletter. There's plenty, as we always say, there's plenty going on in the spring semester. Really, always plenty going on at any point between, say, August and late May or early June, depending on how the baseball and softball teams do. And there's plenty to get your arms around and try to keep it all straight, so you can get all the headlines delivered to your inbox with the LSU newsletter. So to sign up, you go to theadvocate.com/LSU newsletter. We are here every Monday and Thursday on the LSU Sports Insider on all our channels, but specifically the YouTube channel, LSU Tigers on NOLA.com. Please go to LSU Tiger, or please search for LSU Tigers on NOLA.com on YouTube. That way you can find our channel, you can subscribe, you can catch us live there every Monday and Thursday. If you don't catch us live, you can still catch us on that same YouTube channel after the fact. So please subscribe there. And if you don't get, if you like to get your podcasts in a little bit more traditional way, of course, we are on Apple Podcast, Spotify, wherever other finer podcasts are found. Just search for LSU Sports Insider. So, speaking of which, Rab, we'll lay out. Well, first things first. Let's talk a little bit about just the LSU gymnastics season. You said really since way before the season began, even almost as early as last summer, that this had the potential to be one of the better LSU gymnastics teams that they've had, which is quite a mouthful in the past 10 or 15 years, considering all the great athletes they've had come through here and the great teams they've had come through here. Started off looking as such, got a little rocky at some points, and yet here they are at the end of the season, exactly where we thought they might be. Just take us through the season a little bit, if you would.
Yeah, I mean, you started the season, they're predicted to be in the top 5, with some great gymnasts coming back. They suffered through a lot of injuries last year. They lost Kaya Johnson to an Achilles injury early in the year. She decided to come back for a 5th season. And so that bolstered their chances. And then, they just had brought back a lot of experience, blended with a couple of really talented newcomers like Connor McLean and Amari Drayton. And they've been tremendous just about all year long. Maybe a bit of a slow start as they often get off to, but they've had 9 scores over 198, and that's the threshold for like, oh, you've really had a good meet. 198 or above, and just throughout the season, just really had a lot of highlights. They set the program record for best score, 198.475 in a meet against Arkansas in February. They finished second in the regular season to Florida. They stubbed it to Missouri, a meet they shouldn't have lost. Otherwise, they would have shared that title. But then they came back at the SEC championship meet at the Smoothie King Center in March and won that title for the first time since 2019. And just had a lot of tremendous performances. Haleigh Bryant was the all-around and vault champion. Kaya Johnson and KJ Johnson helped share the floor title. Ashley Cowan won bars. Connor McLean had a perfect 10 on beam. Go to the regional in Fayetteville as the top seed, the number 2 national seed, win there. And now they're here as the top seed in their semifinal. And, just Haleigh Bryant, for one, talks a lot about doing their normal gymnastics. And normal gymnastics for LSU means very good, being one of the best in the country. They do their normal today. And it's gymnastics. You never know how things can go. But if they do the normal on Thursday, they should be into the finals. And then you've got a shot at the program's, you said, first national title. They've been the runner-up 4 times in their history. Been very close a bunch of times. But this is their best chance. I think it's their best team since 2017 when you had Sarah Finnegan and Ashley Natt, who of course now is an assistant coach, and Maya Hambrick and McKenna Kelly, and they were just tremendously talented and experienced, and that's what you see this year with the likes of Haleigh Bryant and Kaya Johnson and Aaliyah Finnegan, Sarah's younger sister, and then the newcomers like I mentioned, McLean and Cowan, and KJ Johnson's been tremendous on the floor. So a lot of depth, a lot of and Olivia Dunn. Let's not forget Olivia Dunn, who has competed more this year than she did last year. Really has contributed in some spots. So an excellent team, but no guarantees how they will do, and certainly as Jay Clark likes to say, the head coach, you can't play defense in gymnastics. You can only do your best. You can't do anything about what the other teams do. And so that's where they find themselves going into this national semifinal. I can't hear you.
I'm sorry. Excuse me. You did make mention. I'm sorry, Rab. You did make mention, obviously, that they suffered through so many injuries last year. But this is a repeat trip to nationals. They did make it through to the semifinals last year and through to the finals. Now, we didn't. Full disclosure here: the Advocate didn't send anybody last year, frankly, because we never say never, and miracles happen in sports all the time. But we felt fairly confident that they just, as valiant an effort as they made, and it was as gritty an effort as you'll ever see, the entirety of last season, really considering all the injuries, but also just to get through the semifinals and through to the finals. There was very, very, very minute chance that they were going to make it through and win the championship. And so we didn't have anybody there. We had somebody on site, but not somebody on staff who was on site, just making sure that we had our bases covered on the chance that did happen. But this time is different. This time is different. LSU is the I guess the number 2 favorite would be the best way to put it. Mm-hmm. They are an underdog to Oklahoma. Oklahoma is what you would consider to be a prohibitive favorite, but this is not out of the realm of possibility, in part because, yes, you never know what may happen in a meet, but also because this is a doggone talented LSU team that has broken some records along the way, not just number of perfect 10s and things of that nature, but team records, team scores, things of that nature. Correct, Rab?
Yeah, I mean, they've like I said, they had their best score ever in that meet against Arkansas. Haleigh Bryant set a record at the meet down at the River Center, set a program record for best score in the all-around. And, of course, she's the nation's leader in perfect 10s, active leader with 18. And she's one of 14 gymnasts to complete the career slam, She's the career slam and the season slam. She's had perfect 10s in all 4 events this year, and perfect 10s for all 4 events in her career, which is rare. And winning the SEC title is like, it's not the NCAA title, but it's a very when you're beating the likes of Florida and Alabama and Kentucky, who is very good this year, and those teams, you've done something, and so that's it's been a banner year. And as Jay Clark said to us yesterday, it's been a championship season. Whatever happens here, they are a championship team, and winning the SEC and getting to nationals. This is like making it to the College World Series or the Women's College World Series. You're in that final 8, and you're trying to advance from here to that very last meet on Saturday. But this is the equivalent of that. So they've gotten this far, and that's and just like with the College World Series, once you get there, it's kind of who knows what could happen. It's a crapshoot. So that's kind of the situation you're here in now. But they really had a great season. Confident, they've gotten through with minimal number of injuries, a lot of confidence, a lot of experience, and that's what gives them a shot at that first title. Won't be easy. Oklahoma is the 2-time reigning national champion, and they're favored again. They've won 6 overall in the last 10 years, and just a dynasty. And of course, they're coming to the SEC next year. But they're the team to beat. But I've seen it before. There was one meet here one year, Perryn, here in Fort Worth, and I remember an Oklahoma gymnast stepped out on floor. If they had one more gymnast touch that sideline and step out, LSU was going to win, and it could be that close. And so LSU you might say they need a little help from Oklahoma to win, and LSU needs to be their very best. But at the same time, it's certainly doable for the Tigers. But they got to take care of business today. You can't win the national championship today. You can only lose your chance at it, and you got to be one of those top 2 teams in your semifinal to advance. And that's LSU, California, Stanford, and Arkansas, who also came out of the same regional LSU was in Fayetteville. Top 2 advance. LSU and Cal, clearly the top 2 teams in this regional. Stanford was unseeded. Arkansas seeded like 12th. And LSU and Cal are 2 and 3 in the country. Those are the two teams that should advance. But we've seen it before where there's random things happen. By the way, talking about last year, in last year's regional in Denver, LSU and Michigan were tied for the 2nd spot. Denver advanced. They had to go to a tiebreaker, which meant they had to go to the 6th place scores. And you can find that video on YouTube. You want to see the drama of sports. Go to that and see the reactions from the LSU team and the Michigan team when it was determined that it was LSU was going. And for a lot of gymnasts, you got to remember, this is a sport where there's no senior tour.
That's right.
Like that. You're done with collegiate gymnasts. For most of them, you're done. And for some of those Michigan gymnasts, their careers ended just like that. And it's the thrill of victory and the agony of defeat. And LSU came on here and finished 4th in the country. It was quite an achievement, but they're hoping for more this year, for sure.
I do want to bring up this always just sort of fascinates me, and I think it's always a good reminder to bring this up. Maybe I'm being silly for doing so, but I really do think for the casual fan that it's what's the word I'm looking for? It's important to just sort of serve as a reminder of just how demanding the sport of gymnastics is. And I do want to come back around. You and I were talking off air, Rab, about the 2018 semifinals and championships where LSU, posted almost a 190, I think a 198.2 or something like that in the semifinals, and had they 198.27, and had they posted that score in the championships instead of the semifinals and flip-flopped the scores, it would have worked out for them. They would have won the national championship. Mm-hmm. So again, it just goes to show you that, hey, a little bit here, a little bit there, and who knows what might happen. But before we get onto that, we talked a lot about injuries, and you just said that, hey, look, there's no pro league and things of that nature. And I've said this so many times now that people probably get sick of hearing it, but it's true. If there even were a pro gymnastics league, some sort of thing as a pro American, the American Gymnastics League or something like that, most of these athletes at 22, 23, 21 years old would not be able to turn pro and continue their careers because they were already so wrecked. Their knees, their ankles, their joints, all the things that they have to. I remember this was several years ago now, Rab. If I'm not mistaken, it was Leah Finnegan, but I could be wrong. Where you just sort of detailed every single injury that she'd been through.
Oh, Lexi Priestman.
Yes, Lexi Priestman from Cincinnati. Yeah. I'm sorry.
Yeah, we just had her picture and we pointed to the different parts of her body where she'd had surgeries. It
almost
was
like
double
operations.
digits. Yeah, it was double digits.
You don't think about gymnastics as being a physical, grueling sport because hey, that it looks like such an art form, right? But if you just take an extra pause, I mean, they're doing 720s in the air and landing. When you walk, you're coming down on one foot with the force equal to 4 times your body weight. Now, and when you jog, you're coming down with the force equal to 6 times your body weight on that one foot. Now think about what they're doing at full speed, doing flips and turns and twists and things of that nature, coming down with all the force that they're coming down with. It really is amazing what these athletes do. Just generally speaking, on a regular basis, all the practice they have to put themselves through, and they absolutely pay a price for it. I'm just curious to see what just a sort of a random rumination. I understand that, but just it really is amazing what they put themselves through, is it not?
No, it's worth discussing. Like I spend most of my time covering college football, and we spend most of our time talking about LSU football. But these are the toughest athletes I cover, and I'm not kidding. I'm not making that up. They have to go out there and perform. And especially by this time of the year, the season is 3.5 months long at this point, and everybody's got something that hurts. They're dealing with, and just right now they're dealing with monitoring Haleigh Bryant's hamstring has been acting up, and Savannah Shaneher, who does a couple of events, a 6th-year senior from Florida, she's got a shoulder that's bothering her, but they're both supposed to compete. But there's the things they're monitoring. By this point in their lives, they've done gymnastics for 18 to 20 years. You talk to any of them, and I love to ask them, how did you start? And a lot of them talked about they were jumping and tumbling off the furniture, and their parents said, I got to get this kid in some kind of program because they're going to wreck the house. Christina Desiderio, a former LSU gymnast, recently departed gymnast, talked about doing tumble sets through the restaurant when she'd go out to dinner with her parents. Like, we got to get this kid someplace to focus their energy. So most of them cannot remember not doing gymnastics. They started a mommy and me class or something like that at 2 or 3, and they've literally done it their whole lives. And then they get to 18, 20, 22 years old, and it's a lot. It's a lot of pounding. And they're up there smiling with the sequins and the makeup, and their hair is just perfectly in place, and they're smiling through these routines. But the smiles mask a lot.
Masking the grittiest of gritty athletes.
I'm telling you, it really, more than one of them, I've heard their stories about their injuries, and Lexi Priestman is one that comes to mind. Just I forget how many surgeons. Let's say at least 10. And she came to LSU. She might have had the best resume, certainly to that point, of any gymnast who came to LSU. She was an Olympic contender and all that stuff, and just her injuries had mounted to the point where she never was quite that at LSU. But I remember just talking to her about all this, and I said, "You're tougher than any football player I cover, lady. That's for sure." and it's absolutely true. A few get through with only a few. Ashley Natt, who, like I said, was a great LSU gymnast and is now an assistant coach, had got through pretty unscathed in her career, but she still had a couple of things that bothered her and everything. She doesn't go tumble sets anymore in the gym, but it's they deserve their respect. Whether you like gymnastics or not, or whether you understand it or not, these athletes deserve everyone's respect because they really are tough and they really do gut through some stuff that you look closely there. You watch the meet Thursday or the meet Saturday, and you'll see lots of tape on the ankles. The wrists are heavily taped or braced. You might see someone compete with a brace on their knee. Say, how can they do that on their knee? With that on their knee, and it's quite something. They have a lot of my respect. They really, really do, and I hope people can appreciate that part. I'm glad you brought that up because it's worth mentioning often.
So let's discuss Haleigh Bryant for a moment. As you were there in Fort Worth, Texas, she earned the AAI award given to the top senior gymnast in the United States. I think most of the people know a little bit. Most of the people tuning in know a little bit about her story, Gym Slam, Season Slam, and so forth this year. But one of the best that LSU's ever had to come through here, and certainly essential to their success in Fort Worth.
Yeah, she's I was talking to Bob Moore, former LSU, recently retired LSU assistant coach, who was there a long time under Dee Bro and Jay Clark, and he thinks she's the best they've ever had. And it's hard to argue with that. Boy, what can you say about Haleigh Bryant? She won the AAI award, which goes to the top senior gymnast, but it's as close as gymnastics has to a Heisman Trophy. And she's like the fourth LSU gymnast to win it. She's just had a tremendous season. She has only had like a handful of scores below 990. She's had 8 perfect 10s this year. Like I said, 18 for her career. She had 10s on. They start on vault usually at a home meet. Well, they always do vault and then bars. She went 10-10 on the first 2 events. And I looked up at the River Center at the scoreboard, said Haleigh Bryant 20.000. I said, that's not something you see every day. A 20, next to somebody's name.
That's right.
2 events, and that was the event. That was the meet where she got the 39.925, 40 being the best score you could have. So 39.925. I mean, she only had 0.075 worth of deductions for the whole meet. She's been tremendous. She's the best gymnast in the country. She leads the nation in the all-around scoring. She leads the nation in vault. She won both of those events at the SEC meet. She won the NCAA vault title as a freshman, and that's tough. To be on, you got to be on tonight. This is when the NCAA, along with the teams trying to advance to the final, the NCAA individual championships will be determined on Thursday from the best scores from the 2 semifinals in the all-around, vault, balance beam, uneven bars, and floor exercise. So there's 5 individual championships at stake. And so she's certainly she's in the top 10 in all of them, ranked in top in the country on vault and all around. And aside from that, I've said this to Jay Clark and other people at LSU. People at LSU could not ask for an athlete to represent their school better and to handle themselves with more class than Haleigh Bryant. She recognizes and accepts the role she has. That a lot of young athletes and fans look up to her. She's always on. You never hear any controversy. You never hear anything about any drama with her, any ego or anything like that. She's not the most exciting quote sometimes. It's a lot of we and us and the team, and she says some of the minor complaint. But she is. But
that I mean, her focus on on us and doing what we need to do and what we're supposed to do and worrying about that does sort of speak to her being a great teammate, though, and being, kind of having that laser focus that you would hope your best athlete to have. I'm sorry.
And she does have that. And I will say this to kind of wrap all this up. In an era where we have seen, Perryn, we're going to look back on these last couple of years one day and just be amazed at the great athletes who have come through the LSU's campus. 2 Heisman Trophy winners in the last 5 years, and the top 2 picks in last year's draft with Skeens and Cruz in the baseball draft, and Angel Reese and Mondo Duplantis is not that far removed from LSU, and Sha'Carri Richardson not that far removed from LSU. She will rank up there. She deserves to rank up there with any of them. She's the best I've seen. And I thought, okay, I'm gonna say that about Sarah Finnegan, who Aaliyah's older sister, who also won the AAI award. That's hard for me to say, but she's the best, and I hope for her sake, not trying to be a fan, but I hope for her sake that she caps it off with another individual national title, or certainly leads LSU to a team title. I know the latter would mean more to her than any individual awards, but she deserves all the accolades, and I think. I just think I put myself in the position of her parent. I've talked to her dad and her mom before. But you have to be tremendously proud of this young lady, and she can come back for a 5th year. She's kept it under wraps. I know some people think she will, and some people think she won't. But it probably depends on what they do here this weekend. I would think she can go out on a national championship note. Maybe that would be it. But again, that's going to be it for her. Whenever she finishes here, she's done. She's not, she's not going to the Olympic trials or anything like that. So, unlike some other LSU gymnasts, but she's had a tremendous career, and I hope people, if they haven't ever seen her, hope they tune in to watch her today and probably Saturday to see what she can do, because she's one of the all-time great LSU athletes, not just gymnasts, all-time great LSU athletes.
Hold that thought for a moment as we conduct our business. This is the LSU Sports Insider. Again, you know where to find Rad's great work and all our other writers' great work. That's at theadvocate.com and NOLA.com. Please subscribe. Support your local journalists. Nobody covers LSU like The Advocate does. and like the Advocate has. So please subscribe if you haven't already, whether that's in print or digital or some combination of both. You go to theadvocate.com/subscribe. And please subscribe to our newsletter. This is, listen, you can only get gymnastics coverage in one spot. And you can get the best of the best of the best delivered to your inbox, straight to your inbox, your phone, to your desktop. Get all the latest headlines all in one place. And that way you don't have to go scrounging all over the internet. And so to do that, to sign up for the the LSU newsletter, you sign up at theadvocate.com/LSU newsletter. We are here on the LSU Sports Insider podcast every Monday and Thursday. We're here live every Monday and Thursday. We're on all our social channels, but specifically the YouTube channel, LSU Tigers on NOLA.com. If you search for LSU Tigers on NOLA.com on YouTube, you should be able to find it. You can subscribe. That way you'll catch us live every Monday and Thursday. And if you don't catch us live every Monday and Thursday, you can catch us after the fact anytime you like, including some of our previous episodes. Wilson Alexander and I wrapped up spring football and took a look at what the LSU football program needed to add in the offseason. Spoiler alert, that is defensive tackle and maybe more than one defensive tackle. So stay up to date with all of our episodes there on YouTube. And if you don't get your podcasts on YouTube, if it's more traditional, you can follow us on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, wherever other finer podcasts are found. Just search for LSU Sports Insider. I did want to mention, excuse me, Rab, not to you just made mention of world class athletes who come through here at LSU. I did want to make mention. We could start going down, a good ways down the list and forget several of them still. But I wanted to mention, when do you suppose? And this is something we're going to look up as we get a little bit closer to the draft. But how many schools have 4 first-round receivers in less than 5 years? I mean, these guys, you know what I'm saying? I mean, honestly, when was the last time? I mean, how many schools would just give up almost everything they've got to have one first-round receiver, to have that kind of talent running around on campus? And so Brian Thomas and Malik Neighbors are about to do exactly what Justin Jefferson and Jamar Chase did in the 2020 draft. So that's something else.
And Kyron Lacey could join them next year.
He might. He's certainly trending upward, and that's certainly comforting, I'm sure, not only to Brian Kelly but to the LSU fan base as well. He seems to be at this point, with a long way to go, he seems to be making the most of his opportunities.
And C.J. Daniels, a transfer. Some people say, hey, he could be the top receiver this year. We just don't know.
Xavier Thomas. I mean, one way or the other, they seem to have figured that position out. Yep. They look for everything.
I think I wrote this about 10 years ago. It was like, I looked up going into the season, the team that was right in the middle average of passing, the season before. And it happened to be like Tulane. Okay. Average in the country in the FBS. It's like, what if LSU could just get to average in terms of passing? Just
you mean from back in the Miles era when
back in the Miles era, 230,
when they couldn't complete a forward pass,
236 yards a game or something, like whatever it was. That was right in the middle. Whatever they could average, because the defense back then was really good and the running game was solid. And now LSU's like, they've had. I was thinking this the other day. I was in the car. I was like, LSU's had 2 Heisman Trophy winning quarterbacks. Who would have thought 10 years ago? Who would have thought that? When is LSU ever going to have another Heisman winner? But you had 2 guys, and it's become a quarterback award, obviously. So you got to be really, really studly as a quarterback, passing and of course in Jaden's case, running, and then to have all these receivers to throw to. I mean, it's kind of a chicken or the egg thing, but it's certainly a complementary situation to have quarterbacks like those 2 throwing to receivers like the 4 you mentioned.
Well, I mean, look, let's go back 10 years or so. They had Landry, and Beckham. Yeah. So it's enjoy some of these guys that come through.
You had those guys, but there was still a very run heavy, offense back in 2011.
Sure. I'm thinking more of 13.
2013.
2013. Anyway, we are getting off topic a little bit, but just be mindful and don't take for granted the number of athletes you see come through LSU, and really, for that matter, through the rest of the SEC. They really are something else. I know that's kind of a no duh type of statement, but it's easy to forget sometimes. It really is.
When you're in the middle of it, it is easy to lose.
Yeah. One thing before we, as we get back on to gymnastics here and sort of wrap that up, Haleigh Bryant, of course, much has been made about the gym slam, the career slam. And God bless her. I mean, just as you said, she may be the best that's ever come through LSU. But I do want to bring up for those who don't know that sort of the trend that it seems to be getting a little easier to score a perfect 10 and to notch a perfect 10. Was hoping that you could just sort of explain that to the layperson, including myself, why that is and why there seem to be why perfect 10s seem to be a little bit more common than they certainly were for years and years.
That's a great question, and like a lot of things in gymnastics, it's very subjective when it comes to scoring. I would say in general it's because the gymnasts do more and more difficulty than they used to do. Now you remember, I'm trying to be as concise as possible. You got to remember, collegiate gymnasts compared to international gymnastics, which you'll see this summer at the Olympics in Paris, two very different scoring systems. In gymnastics, in college gymnastics, it's a 10-0. 10-0 is the max. So a perfect 10. And they used to be like that internationally. Now it's an open-ended scoring system. So you could have a score of 14.375 when you see Simone Biles or something like that. So is that good? How good is that? Compared to somebody else, it's kind of hard to define. And I think international gymnastics has done themselves no favors by doing that. Everyone knows
you're confusing the layperson.
Everybody knows what a perfect 10 is, right? You see it. But that said, in international gymnastics, you just add difficulty upon difficulty, and you're like, well, she didn't hit the landing. I know, but she did so many difficult things in the air on the way to that landing. It's that's why the high score. In college gymnastics, you got to do it all. You have to do the difficulty and stick the landing to get a perfect 10. And I think judges the trend has been that judges are being more wowed by the difficulty that people do. Again, watch Haleigh Van Lith. Haleigh Van Lith. I'm confusing my Haleys here.
Oh my goodness!
Haleigh Van Lith.
Breaking news.
Yeah, actually, there is breaking news. Our Reed Darcy is saying she's reportedly going to TCU. So here in Fort Worth. So
okay.
So there is that happening while we're recording this. So it's quite interesting since I'm here across town from TCU's campus. But I think judges are more wowed by all the difficulty they do. Haleigh Bryant does like these blind landings and stuff. When she does bars, she'll flip around to the last instant and turn around and land and try to just nail that perfectly. And I've seen a lot of her 10s, okay, and some of them are more perfect than others. I've seen her, and frankly, and not to pick on her, certainly, because she's obviously, as we said, she's tremendous. I've seen her do bars where she didn't get completely to vertical. You're supposed to get straight up and down vertical on top of the bar. And I've seen her be just a little bit and she still get a 10 but I think her gymnastics and her skill set has such a momentum that it just kind of sweeps them up. Now I'll say that in most meets during the regular season, you have 2 judges per event. At SECs and at regionals, and here you have 4 judges per event. So it's harder to get a 10. That said, we've still seen 10s. Leah Finnegan had a 10 on floor in the Fayetteville Regional. Connor McLean had a 10 on beam at the SEC Championships. So you still see it. And Connor McLean's beam, when she's on, it's one of the best in the world. It's world renowned, as Jay said. So, but that's why I think it's the more and more difficulty the gymnasts do compared to 10, 15, 20 years ago that the judges kind of give them credit for, when maybe they give them a little too much credit at times.
So Oklahoma, to wrap up, we again, no guarantees, but we expect that LSU is going to make it through to the championship round on Saturday, and Oklahoma will make it through, and Oklahoma will be the favorite. What has to happen? We've touched on this a little bit. What has to happen and for LSU to be able to, sort of notch that upset? Whether that's, just sort of the team score to end all team scores, one of the best they've ever posted, things of that nature. But also, what makes Oklahoma so difficult to overcome? And I know you and I have talked about this a little bit, but they're starting to take 5% criticism for sort of the way they perform. And I was hoping that you could sort of just sort of give that to us in lay terms as well.
Yeah, I mean, they're tremendous. I liken Oklahoma women's gymnastics to John Curtis in football. They're not real flashy.
That's a great analogy. Yeah,
they're not real flashy, but what they do it extremely well. They just
Right.
execute, and they just do it with such great consistency. And look, they're tremendous. They've got some great gymnasts. They've been great all year long. They had a 198.950 in the Big 12 championships, which is
It's
almost a
almost
199.
it's almost supernatural.
Yeah, exactly. And they've got four all-arounders ranked in the top 13, led by Jordan Bowers, who we put her in the 5 gymnasts to watch today. She's number 2 in the country behind Haleigh Bryant in the all-around. Faith Torres, Catherine Levasseur, Audrey Davis. They just keep coming at you, and they just stick their landings. Now, a lot of people, the critics of Oklahoma, say they don't do quite as much with as much flair as an LSU does.
Not as daring.
Yeah, and not as daring. And they kind of created this trend that I think is unfortunate in gymnastics, of teams instead of on floor, and LSU's number 1 in the country on floor, Oklahoma's number 2, of teams doing 2-pass tumbling routines on floor instead of 3. Well, obviously, 3 more things can look great, but more things can go wrong. And you see most of LSU's gymnasts will only do 2 tumbling passes now, and that's because of Oklahoma. They kind of started that trend, and as Jay Clark said, gymnastics should always be pushing the envelope, and in some cases they're not. And this is one case where even LSU has given in to the let's be consistent, and instead of being as flashy as possible. Well, that's why they're good. They have excellent gymnasts. Their stuff is very good, but it just doesn't wow you as much as an LSU does, or a Florida, or some of these Utah when they're really good, some of these other teams. So, but I expect, and look, I'll say this too, they got a tough semifinal. LSU got the better draw of their semifinal because you have an unseeded Stanford team in theirs.
I was about to say, go through that if you would, with Florida and Utah.
It's LSU, Arkansas, California, and Stanford. LSU is the 2 seed. Cal is the 3. Arkansas is the 10. I think they had the 12th best average of the season. But they were the 10 seed coming into the tournament, and Stanford is unseeded. In the other semifinal, the evening semifinal,
that's session 1, which begins
session 1 at 3:30
at 3:30 Thursday. Yes,
Thursday.
I'm sorry. This is session 2.
8 o'clock. Oklahoma is number 1, Florida number 4, Utah number 5, Alabama number 8. A very good team is getting left out of, or 2 very good teams are getting left out of that semifinal. Like I said, it should be LSU in California if they do their gymnastics right, advancing to the final. But boy, you could say Florida or Utah, Alabama, probably a little bit below them, but they've hit 198 this season. But Oklahoma, Florida, Utah, somebody's getting left out. And boy, if it could happen, Perryn, that Oklahoma has to count a fall or something like that, and Florida and Utah are really on, and they don't make it through, boy, the door is open for LSU if they advance.
It's on
to win it. Yeah, so watch for that too. I don't expect that to happen, but again, it's gymnastics, and mistakes can happen. But they're a tremendous team, tremendously consistent. For LSU to win the national championship, like I said, they got to get to the final. Oklahoma's got to be a little off. LSU's got to score something over 198. Something probably well above 198. And Oklahoma's going to have to count something that's not great, a 9.775 in one of their events or something like that. Something just a little bit
sloppy landing.
And LSU's got to be on with their best gymnasts. They've had, along with Haleigh Bryant, they've had 3 other gymnasts have 10 perfect 10s this season. Haleigh has had the most, obviously. Connor McLean has had 10s on bars and beam. Remember, she won the 2022 U.S. Nationals title before she came to LSU. That's the title that Simone Biles won last year and likely will again this year. But she won the national all-around title. Very impressive. And then Kaya Johnson's had a 10 on floor, and Aaliyah Finnegan's had 3 10s on floor. Aaliyah Finnegan, to me, is the X factor for LSU. She's been up a little bit. She's been down at times. She's had some falls and some wobbles. But when she's on, especially on floor and beam, she can deliver some really great scores. And LSU needs her to be on to win the national championship, because you expect those other 3 to be pretty darn good: Bryant, Kaya Johnson, and Connor McLean. But they need Aaliyah Finnegan to give them that extra score, because Oklahoma's got, like I said, 4 all-arounders who are really, really top-notch.
Okay, so let's shift the focus a little bit here, just to sort of close out today's episode. You, of course, were at, as far as you were concerned, the happiest place on earth. Even though I know you're a Disney guy, the happiest place on earth for you is Augusta National. So I understand that this is, obviously an LSU podcast, but I just wanted to ask you about, some of sort of your reflections on, you've been to 17 Masters now, is that correct?
Yes.
Okay. And so, listen, everybody, anybody who's ever, I count myself among these. It's very rare that I'll watch golf on a weekend, on a given weekend, but everybody stops and watches the Masters, right? We will get to Sam Burns and why we think he has not, done as well as maybe he should have or could have in Augusta. But first things first, long before Verne Lundquist was known as the voice of the SEC broadcasts on CBS, he was known, among many other things, of course, many years doing the Cowboys broadcast. But of course, his voice and his presence at the Masters was a given, and it was you almost come to depend on it. Yeah, you almost come to depend on it. You knew he was going to be there. That big booming voice was going to be there on CBS, and of course, we all remember the "Yes Sir" call, and among many others in '86 when Nicklaus won it. Just wanted to get sort of, I don't know, 3-5 minutes worth of reflection on Uncle Verne.
Yeah, this was his last Masters. This was the last thing he did. He stopped doing SEC football after the 2016 season. Doesn't seem that long ago, but it was. And then he was just doing he was doing basketball for all the NCAA tournament. He'd do it to like the regional final, and then he stopped doing that. He was just doing golf. CBS has the Masters and the PGA Championship. And he even called, remember a couple of years ago when Phil Mickelson at 50 won the PGA Championship at Kiowa Island, Phil pitched in out of a bunker for a birdie, and he was calling that hole. So it's like great calls. Just follow Verne Lundquist around. Verne Lundquist did the Duke Kentucky regional final back in the early '90s, which is still to me the best college basketball game I've ever seen. He did
Jackie Smith.
Jackie Smith. He was doing the Cowboys radio. Then he's the sickest man in the world. Jackie Smith from Northwestern State dropped the touchdown pass in the end zone, and they lost to the Steelers in Super Bowl 13. And of course, Nicklaus's birdie putt at 17, the "Yes Sir," that was just perfectly timed with Nicklaus pumping his fists like that. And of course, Tiger Woods' famous chip in on 16 in 2005. The ball just trickling into the cup with the last roll. Mm-hmm. See the Nike swoosh just disappear, and so this was his last year. And I had a personal moment, if I may say so. I've gotten to know Verne, over the years from his days calling SEC football. And Sunday I went out on the course because you got to watch when the leaders tee off. You pretty much have to watch it from the press building on TV to make sure you don't miss anything. And so I went out on the course for a couple hours to walk around, and I was over there by Butler Cabin where they do the green jacket ceremony. And Verne was getting into a little golf cart with his wife to go out to 16. And people were walking by. You walk past Butler Cabin to go to the front of the clubhouse to get your picture taken. They have these 4 stations where they'll take people's pictures for free. And they just give you a little card, and you develop it when you get home or get it printed. And people were walking by and they saw him, and they just start cheering, "We love you, Verne. Thank you, Verne." They're clapping for him. They're literally applauding him. And it was a really nice moment. And there was a security guard right there by the little rope. And I said, Could I go? Would you mind if I go over and say hello to him? I really do know him. And I explained, where I was from and where I come. I said, "Okay, don't tell anybody." So I go over there, and some people like Verne Lundquist, some people don't. But I got to admit, I got a little choked up, and I all I could say was, "Verne, I hope you have a great day. I just hope you have a great day." And and he was very nice. And I said, "I know everybody's pulling at you this weekend, just trying to get a piece of you." He was on the Golf Channel talking about this, and he was on CBS talking about that. But it was just, I don't know. It meant a lot to me, and you could tell he appreciated all the applause. And people have seen it's on YouTube as well. The video when Tiger Woods came through 16 in the final round, he stopped and shook hands with Verne Lundquist because they have that. They share that experience,
that piece of history.
That piece of history, yeah. And that was really cool to see, and obviously very gracious and very very nice of Tiger Woods to do that. I'm sure it meant a lot to Verne, and he's one of the great voices, and there've been a lot of great ones at calling. CBS has done the Masters every year. It's been on television. It's the longest running contract in sports
since
sports
53.
56.
Is that right? 56, excuse me.
And they're on year to year, supposedly.
Right.
Then a year to year.
But they'll never. I mean, unless CBS collapses or something. I mean, just the Masters is never going to go anywhere else. I mean,
exactly. It's one of their crown
institution
jewels.
that loves its traditions more than anything else. I would just say that. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
No, and it dovetails perfectly. They get done with the NCAA tournament and then a basketball tournament, and then they go to the Masters. It just is one of the best parts of the year for them.
And I'm sure, as you know, I'm sure you probably know this, probably knew this before I did. The whole reason that the Masters is at the time of year that it was that for decades upon decades, of course, all the writers, all the columnists from the Northeast were down on spring training in Florida, and the Masters timed their event, so that the writers would catch the tournament on their way back up to the Northeast. So
exactly right. It was in late March, actually. Right before opening day. The first few Masters were in late March. And Grantland Rice, the great sports writer, was one of the founding members of Augusta National. In fact, he helped get people to come. There's a great piece online by I think the guy's named David Owen, if you search for it, about the early years of the Masters and how it's the club. It was founded in the Depression, right, in the height of the Depression, 1933. It really struggled to survive those early years. They couldn't even pay their water bill to the city of Augusta at one point, and now they're building.
Now they could pay for the city of Augusta.
They want to move a road so they could extend the fifth hole. We'll pay for it. It's okay. Yeah. They said this year they're building underground parking for the players between now and next year's tournament. So they got to build an underground parking garage between tournaments. Okay.
Yeah. They got a little bit of money. Augusta National is comprised of the people who run the country.
That's right.
I mean, it really is that simple. So they've got some spare change between.
When they decide to do something, they do it. They built the press building which is a 50,000 square foot building between the 2016 and 2017 Masters. They just worked around the clock, and it's like it was always been there. Once we got back there,
you got to have a little bit of coin to have enough manpower to pay for enough manpower to do that. Real quickly, before we wrap this up, Sam Burns, just has not done as certainly all the potential in the world. He's certainly made his mark here and there. Certainly didn't do well, this year and recently. What do you make of it? Former LSU golfer Sam Burns. What do you make of this? And do you ever expect him to be on the leaderboard as they hit the back nine on Sunday?
Yeah, Sam missed the cut at the Masters this year in 3 appearances. He missed the cut. I think he was tied for 29th last year. Missed the cut. It's really puzzling because his best finish in any major is a tie for 20th in the PGA Championship a couple of years ago, and he's never really been in. He's never been in that mix, the back nine on Sunday at the Masters or the U.S. Open or any of them. And it's puzzling because he's got all the tools that you would want to be a major champion. He hits it long. He's got a great short game and putting game. He can go really low, and he's got this even temperament. Sam is one of those guys. He doesn't get too high or too low. Not that that's a requirement, but it helps in golf. You don't get too high or too low. And this year, he had that special circumstance. He and Scotty Scheffler are good friends. Scotty won the Masters again this year, and they shared a house together. And both their wives are pregnant. And they both said they were going to leave the Masters if their wives went into labor, and Sam's wife was due this week. I have not heard if they've had the baby or not, but so he was probably not entirely disappointed to be able to head home and be with her. Scotty's wife is due later this week, and he's playing in the Heritage at Hilton Head, South Carolina right now,
which I just can't believe. But
I know he went home. He came home to Dallas. He lives here in Dallas, and he came home here, and then he, I guess, dropped off the green jacket and went to the Heritage, with your favorite guy, Ted Scott, on the bag.
That's right.
4 Masters wins for Lafayette native Ted.
You do have to give it to him. He's obviously
that's impressive. It's one off the record.
Yeah, and you saw that Scotty Scheffler. I'm sorry, but you saw that Scotty Scheffler made it a point to make sure that Ted Scott got his moment, so to speak. As they're coming up on 18.
Yeah, he did, especially since his wife wasn't there to share with him. His family, his parents were there and everything. But he hadn't won a tournament before he got together with Ted, and now he's number 1 in the world and won 2 Masters and 2 Players, and all his wins are since then. But going back to Sam Burns, I don't know what it is. I gotta feel it's going to be a little bit of a mental thing by now. Just like. You just got to break what do they talk about? The pressure barrier. I remember Skip Burtman, would talk about something like the pressure barrier, and he's got to just do it. And once he does it, I think he'll be. It was like when Phil Mickelson. Why can't Phil Mickelson win a major?
That was exactly what I was going to bring up. Phil Mickelson was 33 when he finally broke through, because it was year after year after year after year of quote unquote failure at the Masters, and he won in 2004 on Easter Sunday at 33 years old. And let's remember that Sam Burns is only 27.
Right.
And you can do this for a long way. Of course, you start to slide a little bit, as you get into your late 30s and things of that nature. But
he's got a long way to go.
Done.
He's got a lot of time left to be in his prime.
That's right.
He's got to really feel it, because this year, like the last couple of years, he and Scotty Scheffler have shared a rental house in Augusta for the Masters. And there was a funny story this year. Tuesday night, Sam Burns said Sam's caddy was cooking some steaks, and Scotty's like, "Oh, y'all cooking steak tonight? I got to go to this dinner." He had to go to the champions dinner, and Sam's like, "I don't feel sorry for you. I don't feel bad for you." Okay?
That's a good story.
And so to see one of your best friends have all this success, and you're still trying to, and he's won tournaments. Like he won the world match play last year and in Austin, and he's won a lot of 5 or 6 tournaments on the PGA Tour. Had an excellent start to his career, but just the majors are what everyone's judged by, right?
That's right.
Even in this fractured era of the PGA Tour versus Live Golf, the best players still come together for the majors, and that's what everyone's judged by. And I just think he's going to win one eventually, at least one eventually. I just think he's too good and too talented, and I think anyone around who's followed LSU golf will say that. He's just got to break through and do it, and maybe seeing Scotty Scheffler have all the success will renew his efforts. But his life's about to change too, right? He's going to have a child. As parents, we know your life changes, and for top level world-class athletes, it's a huge change. So we'll see.
It changes for better and worse.
That's right. But I certainly I think he can do it. He's still very young, and like you said, Phil Mickelson, it was several years beyond where Sam is now before he won a major, and then he won 3 Masters, a British Open, and 2 PGAs, 6 majors, which is a tremendous career. So hopefully he can do it eventually for his sake, because he really does have everything you want to be a major champion. Absolutely.
I was going to also tack on a little bit of a baseball topic here, but we're running late, and frankly, I'm not so sure that the LSU fan base at the moment has the stomach to do that. We'll see how they do with a 3-game series on the road at Missouri in Columbia, a Missouri team that looked for everything like the worst team in the SEC, maybe one of the worst teams of all time in the SEC, and looks like they're starting to turn it around under Carrick Jackson, the first-year coach, former Southern coach as well.
Yeah.
And nothing is
Florida, right?
Nothing is given, right? Yeah, they scored something like I should know this off the top of my head, but I think it was 23 runs against Florida past weekend. So, and if you're LSU, you're not in a position to take anybody for granted. So, they've got work to do. They've got lots and lots of work to do, and they may have dug themselves too deep a hole already, but we shall see. Rab, we will wrap it up here. If you would, bring me back a 2-taco combo from Taco Cabana. I like the torn chicken. I like a little salsa verde. Okay, good. With the chips and the queso. I know that makes me a sicko for everybody who's listening in Texas, because there are taquerias on every corner.
Hey, Perryn, I'm going to write that down, because I'm saying it as the great sports writer Dave Kindred said, I cover things the old-fashioned way, with a notebook and a pen stolen from a Marriott. So
that's the way. Hey, that's a tradition unlike any other, right there. So
that's right.
But anyway, we will wrap it up here. We appreciate everybody tuning in and listening. Again, we are here every Monday and Thursday on the LSU Sports Insider, on all our social channels, but specifically the YouTube channel, LSU Tigers on NOLA.com. Search for LSU Tigers on NOLA.com on YouTube. You should be able to find it, should be able to subscribe. You'll catch us live. And if you don't catch us live, you can catch us after the fact anyway. And if you don't catch us on YouTube, you can always catch us on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, wherever other finer podcasts are found. So please look us up. And, of course, subscribe to The Advocate. Listen, nobody else is covering the LSU gymnastics team and their quest for a national championship like The Advocate. Nobody else is on site to do so, and nobody covers LSU like The Advocate from top to bottom, and that's always been the case and always will be. So please subscribe to The Advocate. Go to theadvocate.com/subscribe, and subscribe to our newsletter as well. Get everything delivered straight to your inbox. You can go to theadvocate.com/LSU newsletter. Rab, it's been a pleasure as always. Get some sleep if you can. I know you will enjoy getting off the road once you actually do for a change. And then we will try to gear up for, I guess maybe the next road trip. The next road trip would maybe be the SEC baseball tournament, but hey, maybe not. I guess we'll
Probably
find
not.
out.
Got the
We'll
Zurich
find out
Classic
soon
next
enough.
week. Got the
Zurich
Classic
Classic. That's right.
next week. That'll be
Yes.
fun. Yeah.
So anyway, we will wrap it up here, but we appreciate everybody tuning in. For Scott Rabalais, I am Perryn Keys. This has been the LSU Sports Insider.